Hello friends, this is your friend back with a new fanfic. What if Naruto awakened Kushina's forbidden power? If you like this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's start. After another successful day of D-rank missions, Shisui, Naruto, Shikamaru, and Ino were turning in the missions to call it a day when Hashirama halted them before leaving. Team 10, I have a special mission for you, as per Shisui's request. He thinks you are ready for a C-rank mission, Hashirama began, his deep voice carrying a sense of gravity. You will be traveling to the land of waves to assist a bridge builder named Tazuna. He has requested our help in ensuring the completion of a bridge that is vital to his village's economy. Hashirama handed a scroll to Shisui. Here are the details. Make sure to leave at first light tomorrow. Alright, Team 10, that is it for today. Meet at the gate nice and early. We aren't trying to pull a Kakashi around here, said Shisui, chuckling before teleporting out of the office. Naruto looked towards his teammates and friends and sighed. Sorry guys, I can't hang out today, I have to do something tonight, he said, sighing and holding the door open for them. Ino, ever the curious one, and what is this something, she asked, leaning towards him. Yes, was all he said, making her punch him in the shoulder. I said to quit doing that when it isn't even a yes or no question, she said, grumbling. Shikamaru chuckled, putting his hands in his pockets. Troublesome as always, Naruto. Just don't be late tomorrow. Naruto gave a deadpan look at him. You seriously the one going to be telling me that, he said, staring at him. Hey now, as troublesome and as lazy as I am on time for everything, he said, feeling slightly offended. Fair point, but I am going to get going back home. See you guys tomorrow, he said, waving back at them. Man, he makes things troublesome, Shikamaru drawled out. Hey now, don't be mean, Shika, said Ino, walking alongside him. No, you misunderstand, he's the good kind of troublesome, he replied, smiling slightly. Uzumaki Senju compound. Naruto opened the gate to the compound to see his mom cooking some food. Hey mom, I am back, he said, smiling. Hello, Naruto-kun, how was your day? Mito asked, glancing at him in the doorway. Pretty awesome, to some extent. Have you ever done 4D rank missions in a row, he asked. Yeah, actually, just recently too, but yes, I know what you mean. They can get pretty boring, she said. Oh, I set your katana on the table, you can work on your fitting for it, she said to him. Mito watched him for a moment, pride swelling in her chest. Dinner will be ready soon. After you finish with the katana, come help me set the table. Naruto grinned. Got it, mom. He sat at the table, working diligently on adjusting the fittings of the katana. He was meticulous, ensuring every piece fit perfectly, taking care to incorporate blue and white elements that symbolized his style and heritage. The katana held deep significance for him, not just as a weapon, but as a representation of his journey and growth as a ninja. The blade itself was forged with the finest steel, a gift from his mother, Mito. She had taught him the basics of forging and smithing, skills passed down through the generations of the Uzumaki clan. The process of creating the katana had been a labor of love and dedication. Naruto had spent countless hours in the forge, hammering the metal, folding it repeatedly to ensure its strength and sharpness. The fittings were where Naruto's creativity truly shone. The tsuba, or guard, was designed with an intricate blue and white pattern. The handle, wrapped in blue and white silk, felt comfortable in his grip. The silk had been a gift from mom too, who insisted that it would bring him luck. The blue symbolized his calm determination, while the white represented the purity of heart and intention. As he wrapped the handle, he carefully fitted the pieces together, adjusting the placement of the fuchi, the metal cap on the hilt, and the kashira, the pommel. Each part had been selected with care, and Naruto ensured that they aligned perfectly, securing them in place. The katana was not just a weapon, it was a testament to his hard work and the support of his friends and family. As he finished adjusting the last fitting, Naruto held the katana up to the light, admiring the way the blue and white accents gleamed against the polished metal. He gave the blade a few test swings, feeling the balance and weight. It moved effortlessly through the air, an extension of his will and determination. Satisfied with his work, Naruto carefully placed the katana back on the table, ready for the mission ahead. The blade, with its blue and white fittings, was not just a weapon but a testament to his journey and the countless hours of effort he had poured into becoming the ninja he was today. Dinner's ready. Mito called from the kitchen, breaking Naruto's reverie. Coming, he yelled out. He ran downstairs to see that Hashirama had just teleported in and Mito was grabbing the plates to set up dinner. Naruto grabbed the plates from her and set the table. Thanks, sweetheart, Mito said, smiling warmly as Naruto deftly arranged the plates on the table. Hashirama chuckled, watching his grandson's eagerness to help. That katana of yours coming along nicely, Took after my talent, I see. Well, if it wasn't for you training me in Kenjutsu the past year and a half I wouldn't be as good, not to mention the fact that you taught me how to forge, he said. While that is true it was your hard work, said Hashirama sitting at the table. Now listen, C ranks are a much higher jump from D ranks, he said pointing his finger at him. Promise you are going to be safe, he said. Naruto sat down at the table as Mito served the steaming dishes. Don't worry, Dad, Shisui-sensei got our backs, and I'll be careful, he said, smiling reassuringly. Hashirama's serious expression softened, but his tone remained firm. Good. I think he will do fine. You are our kid after all, he said patting him on the shoulder. All right, you two, let us eat a good hearty meal, said Mito. Namikaze compound. The family ate in silence. Nothing was being said now and tension still hung in the air after everything that still happened. Minato cleared his throat before speaking. Well, how was everyone's day? He asked, trying to spark some conversation. The kids completed 3D rank missions today, said Kushina. I swear we have the same catch Tora mission every single day cause the lady doesn't know how to treat her animals, said Kaide crossing her arms. Oh, yeah, that does get a bit repetitive, said Naomi in response. Menma was quiet as he slowly stirred his bowl of ramen around. It was always like this now. Naomi worried for him, he was slowly becoming more and more cold, and it was only about a month since the court case. Jiraiya decided to speak up at that moment. Well, I remember when I had to do that. Not exactly catching a cat, but I remember when Tsunade and I were catching people's pets and whatnot. Yeah, Jiraiya would be perving on me half the time and I had to the actually mission, she said, glaring at him with him sighing. Yeah, whatever, he said, being hit on the back of the head. Don't you yeah whatever me, that is quite literally what you did, she said, making a few of the others laugh. As the laughter settled down, Naomi glanced sideways at Menma, her concern growing. His silence had stretched far too long, even in moments like this when the conversation turned lighthearted. Menma, you okay? She asked softly, her voice laced with worry. Menma looked up briefly, his expression blank. I'm fine, he muttered, but the stiffness in his tone said otherwise. Kushina noticed too, her maternal instincts kicking in. Menma, sweetie, if something's bothering you, you can tell us, she urged, leaning forward slightly. Menma shook his head, his bangs falling over his eyes as he stared down at his ramen. I said I'm fine, he replied curtly, his voice tinged with frustration. The atmosphere grew tense again, the moment of levity vanishing like a wisp of smoke. Minato sighed, running a hand through his hair. It hadn't been the same since the court's decision. While they were all trying to move forward, the cracks in their family's foundation had become glaringly obvious. Well, how about this, we can try to have a good mission tomorrow, said Kushina, trying to lift his spirits. Menma only nodded as he slurped the rest of his broth and put his bowl down. Sure, he said, heading up to his room. Everyone sighed at this. They have been trying to break him out of this funk for the past month, but nothing was working. Menma leaned back in his chair, his hands clasped behind his head as he stared at the cluttered desk before him. Books on chakra theory, elemental manipulation, and advanced combat strategies were scattered haphazardly. A thick notebook lay open in the center, filled with hastily written notes and diagrams. He frowned, remembering how Naruto had always been engrossed in his books during their academy days. Back then, Menma had scoffed at his brother's studio useness, preferring to rely on natural talent and charisma. Now, those same books felt like a lifeline, a way to catch up, to prove that he wasn't just Naruto's lesser counterpart. He didn't know if Naruto was stronger or not, but he was damn sure that he would not be. Why the hell do I feel this way? He doesn't give a damn about us anymore, he said, shutting his book. You know what, I don't need the Uzumaki clan techniques. I will find a way to be strong with Dad's jutsu and become strong, he said, clenching his hands into fists. His eyes flicked red before tears fell down his face. Damn you, Naruto, he said, wiping them away quickly before getting back to reading. The next morning, we are going to be late, said Tazuna, feeling impatient. You sure this team is good? Shisui was in front of him, smiling slightly. Sir, we have 6 minutes before we must leave. Naruto will be here soon, he said, trying to calm him down. Didn't we just say to him not to be late, said Shikamaru. Yeah, we did, but Naruto has never been late, so he won't be, said Ino, fixing her hair. Sorry guys. I had to make a couple of seals before I left the house this morning, he said, jogging up to them. See, like I said, now we can get going, said Shisui to Tazuna. Well, I guess the redhead does look like he knows what he is doing, said Tazuna as he glanced at Naruto. Shisui chuckled, turning to face Tazuna. Don't let his age fool you. Naruto is one of the hardest workers I've ever seen, and he's got a few tricks up his sleeve, he said, patting Naruto on the shoulder. Naruto scratched the back of his head, slightly embarrassed by the praise. Come on, Shisui-sensei, you're making me sound cooler than I am, he said, grinning sheepishly. Well, I don't see any reason to delay any further, said Shikamaru with a yawn. Let's get this over with. Ino adjusted her pack and glared at Shikamaru. You could at least pretend to be enthusiastic for once, Shika. This is our first C-rank mission, she said with a huff, though the excitement in her voice was evident. As they began their journey, the team fell into formation. Shisui led the group, keeping an eye out for potential threats, while Shikamaru and Ino flanked Tazuna to ensure his safety. Naruto brought up the rear, his senses sharp. A few hours into the trip, Shisui had glanced back at his students who were bored, which was unsurprising. Alright, my little cute genin. Why is it that Tazuna here had to request help? Duh, sensei, because they have no ninjas in the village, said Ino, feeling smart. The big 5 villages, such as the Hidden Leaf, the Hidden Sand, the Hidden Mist, the Hidden Cloud, and the Hidden Stone, have an advantage. They've built up their military and financial strength over generations, giving them the ability to train and maintain shinobi forces, Shisui explained, his tone taking on a slightly lecturing quality. Smaller villages don't have that luxury. Many can't even afford to hire ninjas unless it's an emergency. Ino raised her hand as though they were back in the academy. So, sensei, is that why our missions vary so much? Like, one day we're catching a cat, and the next we're bodyguards. Shisui nodded. Exactly, Ino. The Land of Waves is one of many small villages that could ask for help from multiple big villages. For example, they could have asked for help from the Hidden Mist, but there is a civil war going on, finished Shikamaru. Yeah, that's right. I originally was going to ask, but that was the main reason I didn't ask them, said Tazuna, drinking some sake. Shisui gave Tazuna a sideways glance, his smile fading slightly. You're lucky the Hidden Leaf was able to take your request, Tazuna-san. Civil wars or not, the Hidden Mist has its priorities, and small villages like yours often get caught in the crossfire or forgotten altogether. Naruto, walking at the rear, frowned at Tazuna's casual drinking. You shouldn't rely on sake for courage, Tazuna-san. What happens if you drop your guard because you're drunk? Tazuna scoffed, waving Naruto off. Kid, I've been through worse than this. A little sake helps me keep calm. You'll understand when you're older. Naruto muttered under his breath but didn't press further, his eyes scanning the surroundings with increasing vigilance. He then noticed a water puddle up ahead. He was confused because it was hotter than hell out and it should have dried up. He used his sensory skills and reached out to feel 2 chakra signatures. He still couldn't tell the capacity of their chakra, but it didn't matter. Shisui looked back at him and nodded. Once he was right above the puddle, he quickly pulled out 2 seals and placed them in the puddle. He dispelled the genjutsu, and the 2 thugs were frozen in place. Can't move, said the first one. What the hell did you do to us? I can only move my mouth, said the other one. They are paralysis seals. You are frozen in place until I take off the seal, said Naruto, pointing at them. The rest of the team walked over to Naruto after the commotion. Nice seals, Naruto, said Shisui, walking up to them, picking them both up, and tying them to the tree, he said, looking at them. Well, I'll be damned. You 2 are the demon brothers, said Shisui, taking the seals off them. The demon brothers glared at Shisui, their sharp teeth bared in defiance. One of them growled, so, you know who we are. Then you should also know that messing with us is a mistake. Shisui chuckled, utterly unfazed. A mistake. You two were caught before you could even lift a finger. Honestly, I'm more disappointed than impressed. Do you two even realize who I am? Shisui of the body flicker, said Shikamaru. They both paled at that and started to shake. Oh, shit dude, what the hell did we get into trying to get that bridge builder? The demon brothers exchanged panicked glances, their bravado crumbling under the weight of Shisui's reputation. We didn't sign up to go against someone like you, one muttered, his voice trembling. Shisui smirked, leaning against the tree they were tied to. Well, now you have. And I'm not exactly known for letting hired thugs go scot-free when they threaten innocent people. But before we deal with that you have some explaining to do, said Shisui turning to Tazuna. He was sweating bullets now, not sure what to do. You lied about the mission being AC rank. If Naruto wasn't a censor and if I hadn't signaled him to do something about it, my precious team could have been hurt, he said, getting more serious now. Tazuna gulped under Shisui's intense gaze, gripping his sake bottle so tightly his knuckles turned white. I didn't think it would turn out like this. I thought. His voice faltered, and he looked down at the ground, unable to meet Shisui's piercing eyes. You thought lying to a team of shinobi about the dangers of this mission was acceptable. Shisui pressed, his tone sharp but controlled. My genin are fresh out of the academy. They're talented, but they aren't meant to face threats like this yet. And you put their lives at risk with your dishonesty. Tazuna looked at the genin. Naruto, Shikamaru, and Ino, each wore varying expressions of worry and determination. His guilt deepened. I didn't mean to endanger anyone, but I didn't have a choice. If I had told the truth, no one would have taken the job, and my village would be doomed. Insert Tazuna's backstory because we know what happens and I do not want to explain. By the end, Tazuna's shoulders slumped, and he stared at the ground, avoiding eye contact. I know what I did was wrong, and I'm sorry. But I couldn't stand by and let my people keep suffering. If this bridge isn't finished, they'll never have a chance at freedom. Shisui was conflicted and he was trying not to let his emotions get in the way of the mission, but he was always like this. Naruto was the first to step forward, his voice steady and unwavering. Sensei, if there's even a chance we can help these people, I want to do it. It's what being a shinobi is about, isn't it? Protecting those who can't protect themselves. Ino nodded, her earlier irritation replaced with resolve. Naruto's right. I mean, yeah, it's risky, but what's the point of all this training if we back down when it matters most? Shikamaru sighed heavily, scratching the back of his head. Troublesome, but leaving now would be even more troublesome. We might as well finish what we started. Shisui smiled slightly at his students. I also agree, but first we are doing these things. Because we now have missing Nin after us, we will request that this is going to be a higher grade mission. Secondly, I will send a backup. I don't mean to be that guy, but while I am strong, it is nice to have a backup team, he said, summoning a cat. Shisui crouched down and stroked the sleek black cat he had summoned, which purred softly before looking up at him with intelligent, glowing green eyes. Kuro, I need you to deliver a message to the Hokage immediately, Shisui instructed, attaching a small scroll to the cat's collar. Inform him that this mission has escalated and requires backup. Recommend a team with strong mid to long range capabilities. The cat meowed in acknowledgement before disappearing in a puff of smoke, leaving only faint wisps of chakra in its wake. Shisui stood and turned back to his students, his demeanor calm yet commanding. Until the reinforcements arrive, we'll proceed cautiously. Formation stays tight, and we maintain constant vigilance. I'll handle any high-level threats, but remember your training. You're more capable than you think, Shisui said, his words aimed at bolstering their confidence. We don't have to worry about the demon brothers. I sent a message in there to come and get them so we can collect the payment for their bounty, he said happily. Tazuna looked at them, his eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and guilt. Thank you, he said softly, his voice thick with emotion. I promise I'll make sure this bridge is worth the risk you're taking. Shisui nodded, his expression softening slightly. Just make sure you stay close and don't do anything reckless. Your safety is our priority too. A few hours later, Hokage office. Hashirama stared out the window overlooking the village and smiled. It was a somewhat peaceful day aside from a dumbass on the civilian council that barged in, making demands that were out of the civilians' jurisdiction. Other than that, it was a lovely sunny day so far. He heard a scratching sound on the window and looked to see a cat wanting to get in. It had markings on it meaning it was a summoning. He opened the window to let it in, pulled the message off his back, and said it was from Shisui. The mission has just been made a higher rank, and we need backup, was all it said. The Hokage nodded at the cat, which dispelled shortly after. Well, if Shisui thinks they are fine and is asking for backup, then I guess it should be fine, he said as he pulled out teams who could help. Boy, do I hate being shorthanded on ninja, he said scanning through the teams. Since Hiruzen was halfway through his reign as Hokage, the village was experiencing more and more shortages of ninjas to help. It was for many reasons such as a few great ninja wars and the Kyuubi attack, but it was a lack of people wanting to help and be ninja. Everything all right, Lord Hashirama? Asked Shikaku Nara walking into the room. Not really. We have too few ninjas and a team just asked for backup. I might have to resort to genin teams, but they are too green to be sending them out on a mission, he said flipping through them. Well then, what new teams can help? He asked walking over to them. Team 7, Team 8, and Team 12, he said showing him the teams. The thing is we don't need a tracking team, so Team 8 is out of the picture, he said tossing the team file to the side. So, you have Team Kushina, which is Naomi Namikaze, Menma Namikaze, and Kaide Namikaze, and you have Team Kakashi, which is Sakura Haruno, Sasuke Uchiha, and Sai Shimura, said Shikaku contemplating. And you already know that Team 7 is a bad option right out the gate for obvious reasons with the falling out of the family. Could you imagine how pissed Naruto would be at me, said Hashirama worried. He was the Hokage, and his emotions should not be getting in the way of this mission, but if bad blood between people would arise then he had to put his foot down and prevent that from happening. So, you are looking for a powerhouse team to help with them, replied Shikaku. Exactly, Hashirama agreed. We need a team that can provide strong support without causing additional tension. Shikaku rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Well, Team Kakashi is skilled, but they're still a bit raw. Team Kushina, on the other hand, has a good balance of power and experience. Plus, Kushina's kids are highly capable, but those teams aren't going to work out well. Team Kakashi had potential, but they were still rough around the edges. Yet, with Shisui already on the field and requesting backup, the options were limited. All right, Hashirama finally decided, we'll send Team Kakashi as backup. I'll make sure they understand the seriousness of this mission and the need to stay cautious. Shikaku nodded. I'll brief them personally. They'll need to be prepared for anything. Hashirama began drafting a message to Kakashi, outlining the mission parameters and the urgency of the situation. I trust Kakashi to lead them wisely. He's experienced enough to handle unexpected challenges. As Hashirama finished the note, Shikaku took it and prepared to leave. I'll get this to them immediately. Anything else? Hashirama sighed, just make sure they understand the stakes. This will likely be a B rank or an A- rank mission, he said seriously. At the training grounds, Team Kakashi was in the middle of a sparring session. Kakashi Hatake observed his students, his one visible eye taking in their movements and techniques with critical precision. Sasuke Uchiha was locked in a fierce taijutsu exchange with Sai Shimura, their strikes swift and calculated. Sakura Haruno stood to the side, practicing her chakra control exercises. Kakashi was hoping to increase her reserves in the long run as hers were nowhere near those of his two other students. This was his first ever team to pass all things considered, and he had been legitimately training them compared to the laid-back attitude he normally had. Part of him wished that he had done this with Naruto, but he missed out on that chance. He knew he up and he was hoping to redeem himself. Time, Kakashi called out, and the two boys halted, panting slightly. Good work, both of you. Sasuke, try to focus more on your defense. Sai, your form is improving, but watch your footing. Before they could respond, Shikaku Nara appeared at the edge of the training ground, signaling for Kakashi. Kakashi, we need to talk. Kakashi approached, his demeanor calm but curious. What's going on? Shikaku handed over the message from Hashirama. You've been assigned a backup mission. It's an urgent request from Shisui's team in the Land of Waves. They need support immediately. Kakashi quickly read the note, his expression growing serious. Understood. We'll prepare to leave at once. Turning to his team, Kakashi addressed them with a stern tone. Team, we've got a mission. It's a high priority, and we'll be providing backup to Shisui's team in the Land of Waves. This will be more dangerous than our usual assignments, so I need you all at your best. Sasuke's eyes lit up with a determined gleam. Finally, a real challenge. Sai simply nodded, his face emotionless but focused. Sakura, though nervous, straightened up, showing her readiness. We leave in 30 minutes, Kakashi instructed. Pack your gear and meet back here. We'll discuss the mission details on the way. Land of Waves. Shisui's team continued their cautious advance, now crossing a body of water in a boat piloted by a local contact of Tazuna. The gentle lapping of the water against the boat's hull was the only sound, the group's collective tension palpable. Shisui turned to Tazuna with a serious look on his face. All right, Tazuna, I need to know why you need protection and why you are building this bridge. You glossed over it back there, and I need the full story. Tazuna sighed heavily, looking troubled. Do you know Gato, the fishing magnate? Shisui replied, narrowing his eyes. He's a well-known businessman, but I've heard rumors about his less savory activities. Tazuna nodded grimly. Gato is more than just a businessman. He's a tyrant and a criminal. He uses his wealth and influence to control the Land of Waves. He monopolizes the shipping industry, charging exorbitant fees and using brute force to eliminate any competition. Naruto's expression darkened. So, he's essentially holding the entire country hostage. Exactly, Tazuna confirmed. He's drained our resources and crushed our spirits. The bridge I'm building is our last hope. If we can complete it, we can connect to the mainland, allowing us to bring in goods and trade freely without Gato's control. It's the key to our freedom and prosperity. Well, we will do our best. That is why we sent backup as well, Shisui said, looking over to his students. Pop quiz my cute little genin. Why did I send for backup? He asked, looking towards them. Because we encountered missing nin. So, we are likely to encounter a higher rank missing nin, said Shikamaru. Exactly. Yes, I am a high-rank shinobi, but who knows what or who will show up to hunt us down, he said as they hit the dock getting off. They thanked the fishermen and were on their way. Naruto was vigilant to make sure nothing was in the area. He was spreading out his sensory ability as far as he could to make sure he would know when someone was coming. That was when he felt it. There was someone in the bushes. He drew his kunai, throwing it at a high speed towards the bushes, scaring the others in the group. Ino's eye twitched as she saw this. You trying to give me a heart attack, Naruto? She half yelled from fear and annoyance. Naruto carefully pulled back the branches, revealing a small, trembling white rabbit, its eyes wide with fear. He sighed in relief, sheathing his kunai. False alarm, everyone. It's just a white rabbit. In the middle of summer? Asked Shikamaru curiously. That was when Shisui activated his Sharingan, diving towards Tazuna. Everyone get down, he yelled out. Everyone ducked down when the swoosh of sword. The sword struck the tree with a man teleporting on it. When I heard the demon brothers had trouble, I started to list off the ninja who took them down, and it all makes sense now, said the man, turning around slightly. He had a scar on the right side of his face with red markings on his face. Juzo Biwa, one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist, said Shisui, helping his students up. Not quite, Juzo replied with a smirk, as another man teleported onto a branch in a nearby tree. This newcomer had a katana and wakizashi strapped to his back, and his face was wrapped in bandages, leaving only his cold eyes visible. Zabuza Momochi, Naruto said, recognizing him. Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't he being taught by Juzo Biwa? Damn straight, kid, Zabuza responded, his voice filled with arrogance. You should feel honored to die by our hands. We will be fine, said Shisui as he readied himself, pulling his sword off his back. The 2 missing nin started to form hand signs in unison as they said the jutsu. Ninja art, hidden mist jutsu. The mist thickened, enveloping the area in a dense fog. Visibility dropped to almost zero, and the tension in the air became almost unbearable. Shisui activated his Sharingan, his red eyes cutting through the mist. Stay close and stay alert, he commanded, his voice steady despite the situation. You know there are many points on the body where if either of us cut you, you will, he said, creating a menacing aura throughout the field. 8 points: larynx, spine, lungs, liver, jugular, subclavian artery, kidneys, heart. Now, which will be my attack point? Shikamaru and Ino were shivering slightly, but they were still determined to get through this. Naruto, Ino, and Shikamaru tightened their formation around Tazuna, each ready for the inevitable attack. Naruto's senses were on high alert, his body tense and ready to react. "This mist is making it hard to see anything," he muttered. Naruto knew his sensei had the advantage because of his dojutsu, but they didn't. He had an idea. "All right, hold on," he said to them. He ran through a few hand signs before sticking his hands out. "Wind style, air pulse," he said, blowing a good majority of the mist away. Shisui nodded at Naruto, who was readying himself. "Damn brat," said Zabuza right next to the group, his katana poised to strike. But before he could bring it down, Shisui intercepted it with his sword, blocking the attack just inches away from Naruto's head. Sparks flew as their blades clashed, and the force of the impact sent shockwaves through the mist. Juzo appeared at the other end of the group, leaving them wide open for attack now. Naruto reacted fast, hitting a seal on his left shoulder, making his katana appear. He pulled it from the sheath, deflecting the attack surprised both swordmen. "Impressive, brat," Juzo sneered, his eyes narrowing as he assessed Naruto's unexpected skill with a blade. "But don't think that will save you. This is the Kubikiribocho, a legendary sword. Topple that with my swordsman's skills and I am a deadly match." "Doesn't matter to me," he said, deflecting another strike. A mirage of Shisui jumped in to deal with him as Naruto formed the ram sign, making 14 shadow clones. Shisui started to create mirages from his body flicker and the battle was on. The real Naruto stood back against the group once more. Shisui didn't want them to get hurt and he was the last resort to make sure they were safe. The clones spread out, attacking Juzo and Zabuza from all angles. The two swordsmen were skilled, but the combined assault from Naruto's clones and Shisui's mirages kept them on the defensive. Each strike from the clones was met with lethal precision by Juzo and Zabuza, who countered with deadly force. Shisui's body flicker technique made him appear in multiple places at once, creating confusion and giving Naruto's clones opportunities to strike. Juzo and Zabuza found themselves surrounded, their vision clouded by the mist and the overwhelming presence of their opponents. "Stay focused," Zabuza barked at Juzo, blocking a strike from one of Shisui's mirages. "We've faced worse odds before." He then creates water clones with Juzo doing the same. The two of them jumped back on the lake to give them some idea of what to do next. "That damn red-headed brat. I am not sure about the other two, but I know he had some skill. He isn't a threat, but he can be a thorn in our side," said Zabuza. Juzo narrowed his eyes and then smiled. "Indeed, but even Shisui of the body flicker is going to get tired quickly if we both are hammering at him. We just need to be careful because he has a flee on-site order, but so do we," he said, smiling at him. Zabuza nodded, a grim smile spreading across his face. "Fine. Let's play this smart then. We need to tire them out and wait for an opening." Juzo and Zabuza exchanged a look of understanding before splitting up, each moving to flank the group from different sides. Shisui's Sharingan followed their movements, calculating the best way to counter their strategy. "Stay close," Shisui commanded. "We need to keep our formation tight. Naruto, keep using your clones to disrupt them. Ino, Shikamaru, be ready to support." Naruto nodded, creating more shadow clones that spread out to create confusion. He could sense the tension in the air, but he knew they had to stay focused. Juzo attacked first, launching himself at Shisui with a barrage of swift sword strikes. Shisui parried each blow with precision, his Sharingan predicting Juzo's movements. The sound of metal clashing against metal echoed through the misty battlefield. At the same time, Zabuza targeted Naruto's clones, slicing through them with deadly accuracy. Each clone that disappeared was quickly replaced by another, but the relentless attacks were starting to get annoying. The two swordsmen were also starting to make clones from the water source behind them, and it was making it difficult to try to get them to surrender. "Damn it, they are too fast for my shadow possession," Shikamaru said, frustration clear in his voice. "Same for my mind transfer," Ino added, not wanting to risk using it and missing it. Naruto gritted his teeth, realizing the predicament they were in. "We need to change our strategy," he thought, his mind racing for a solution. The endless water clones and the swift movements of Juzo and Zabuza were overwhelming, and their current tactics weren't enough to gain the upper hand. Shisui, keeping a keen eye on their enemies' movements, shouted, "Then I shall do this. Fire style, Great Fireball Jutsu." A massive fireball launched towards the two swordsmen, lighting up the mist. "You guys need to go and get out of here," Shisui said, his eyes scanning the battlefield as water clones began forming again, the two missing nin unscathed. Bad idea, sensei, Naruto replied, not backing down. Listen to me, Naruto. You need to get them to safety. There is no room for arguing with me, he said, preparing himself. His reserves were running just a bit low. The older he got, the more he realized that activating your dojutsu, using the body flicker repeatedly, and using physical strength took a lot out of you. He had a lot of strength left, but in a 2 versus 1, he was less likely to win. That's not what I mean, sensei. I sense someone else watching this fight. If they are with them, then we would be open to attack, Naruto said, pointing to the forest. That kid is a sensor. It makes sense now. That's probably how he can dodge attacks. Impressive that he can sense Haku, Zabuza muttered to himself. Damn, they have backup. We better make them retreat for now, Shisui said, summoning a shadow clone. Naruto, get up here, he called, having him stand next to the clone. Shit, they are going for a powerful attack, Juzo said, preparing himself. Zabuza and Juzo started to run through a sequence of hand signs as Shisui and Naruto did the same. Give me a wind jutsu, Naruto. We will amplify the attack with my fire jutsu, Shisui instructed. Naruto nodded, forming the necessary hand signs. Wind style, great breakthrough. He shouted, sending a powerful gust of wind towards the enemies. Fire style, dragon flame jutsu. Shisui followed, his fire jutsu merging with Naruto's wind jutsu, creating a massive, fiery tornado that roared across the battlefield. Juzo and Zabuza were caught off guard by the intensity of the combined attack. The flames roared through the mist, illuminating the area with a fiery glow. The heat was intense, forcing the two swordsmen to retreat further back towards the lake. Damn, that burns, we need reinforcements, said Zabuza, signaling for someone. The brief moment of halted flames drew everyone's attention. The fiery tornado seemed to have met an obstacle, and within the flames, a figure began to emerge, and the fire was stopped by something in the way. Someone is over there, said Naruto as he shouted over the roar of the flames. They continued their onslaught until there was nothing. The two ninjas stopped their jutsu and looked at the steam slowly rising from the lake from the intensity of the fire. You're kidding me. They're gone. I am not sensing any chakra signatures either, Naruto said, confused. I am not seeing anything either, said Shisui, deactivating his Sharingan. Keep sensing, Naruto. They could still be here, he said, walking over to the rest of the group. You guys all right? He asked, hoping they weren't hurt. They all nodded. Naruto continued to scan the area with his sensing abilities, his brows furrowed in concentration. The mist was slowly dissipating, revealing the damage their combined jutsu had inflicted on the battlefield. The lake's surface was still rippling from the intense heat, and scorch marks marred the ground. I don't sense anything, Shisui-sensei, Naruto finally said, shaking his head. It's like they just vanished. Shisui frowned, his eyes narrowing as he looked around. They are likely gone then. They were being overwhelmed and needed to leave, he said, examining his team and Tazuna. Ino and Shikamaru approached, looking a bit shaken but unhurt. Tazuna was there too, eyes wide with a mix of fear and awe. That was incredible, Tazuna said, his voice trembling slightly. I've never seen anything like it. Shikamaru sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. Yeah, but we can't let our guard down. They could come back at any moment. Ino nodded in agreement. And we need to figure out what their next move is. They're not the type to give up easily. Naruto, still on high alert, scanned the forest once more. Yeah, there is still sense nothing, said Naruto, still making sure they weren't going to pop out of nowhere. Shisui, though visibly tired, maintained a vigilant stance. Agreed. How far are we or your home, Tazuna-san? He asked. About 10 minutes, we should go there now, he said, gesturing to get moving. In the woods. Why the hell would we fight Shisui of the body flicker, said Zabuza, putting on some burn cream to help from being singed from the flames. We are fine, aren't we? We just need to be ready for the next time. You should thank your apprentice, you ungrateful bastard, he said, pointing to him. Zabuza growled, wincing as he applied the burn cream. Yeah, I know. Haku, thanks, he said grudgingly. Haku, who had been silent up until now, nodded in acknowledgement, his expression as calm and serene as ever. Juzo, meanwhile, was deep in thought. We underestimated them. That won't happen again. Next time, we'll come prepared with a strategy to counter their abilities. Zabuza, still grimacing in pain, looked at Juzo, tossing him the burn cream. Agreed. But what do we know about them now? Shisui is their most dangerous fighter, but the redhead kid is a censor, and even if those two other kids weren't in combat, they are still likely strong anyway, he said. Agreed. We will wait it out for a bit, said Juzo. I am going to get some more help, he said, smiling at his grand plan. Back with Team Shisui, they started to walk up to the clearing and saw a house leading to a pier along the shore. This is home, said Tazuna, walking up on the deck to his home. Just wait here a second, I want them to know it's me, he said, making them confused for just a moment. They all realized that Tazuna had a family, and he wanted to let them know he was fine. As Tazuna approached the door, he called out, Tsunami. It's me, Tazuna. Open the door. A moment later, the door creaked open, and a woman with long, dark hair and a worried expression peeked out. Upon seeing Tazuna, her face lit up with relief. Father, you're back. She rushed forward, embracing him tightly. Yes, Tsunami, I'm back, Tazuna said, patting her back reassuringly. These shinobi have been protecting me. We need to let them in and get settled. Tsunami quickly stepped aside, motioning for the team to enter. Please, come in. Thank you for bringing my father back safely. Shisui nodded politely as he and the others entered the house. It's our duty, ma'am. We're here to ensure Tazuna-san's safety until his project is complete. The inside of the house was modest but cozy. Naruto's clones dispersed outside, taking up positions and turning into objects to keep watch. Shisui turned to Tsunami. We appreciate your hospitality, he said, bowing. Oh, of course, I will show you to your rooms, she said, smiling. Shisui and his team followed Tsunami through the house. The interior was simple but homely, with wooden floors and traditional sliding doors. The warmth of the house was a stark contrast to the tension and coldness outside. They reached a hallway where Tsunami pointed to 2 rooms. Your students can use these rooms. They're a bit small, but I hope they'll be comfortable enough for you, she said, opening the doors. The rooms were modest, each with a futon, a small table, and a lamp. Shisui nodded appreciatively. These will be perfect. Thank you, Tsunami-san. As they settled in, Naruto looked around, his curiosity piqued. It's nice here. Reminds me a bit of home. Shikamaru, already lying down on one of the futons, sighed. Yeah, it's peaceful. Let's hope it stays that way. Ino, who was standing by the window, glanced outside. I've never seen a waterfront home like this before, she said, looking at the waves hitting the shore. The gentle sound of the waves crashing against the shore provided a serene backdrop to the otherwise tense atmosphere. Ino gazed out the window, taking in the sight of the ocean stretching far beyond the horizon. The house, while small, had a peaceful charm to it, and for a moment, she could almost forget the danger lurking outside. Shikamaru, still leaning against the door, smiled. Well, it's peaceful for now and I want to get some rest while we still can, he said. Agreed, said Naruto, sitting down in his room. Your room is right across from them, honey, said Tsunami to Ino. Thank you. I am going to hang out here for a bit before bed, she said as she walked away, showing Shisui his room. Say, Naruto, where the hell did you keep that katana? How do you have a katana, and why? Asked Ino all in succession. Yes, to all 3 of those questions, he said, getting a smack to the back of the head from Ino. Naruto rubbed the back of his head where Ino had smacked him, still pretending to cry dramatically on the floor. Ow, Ino, that was uncalled for. He whined, though his voice was clearly laced with amusement. You really enjoy abusing me, don't you? Ino shot him a sharp look, her hands resting on her hips. Maybe if you stopped being so, I wouldn't have to. You keep doing that dumb thing with answering yes to any question that doesn't involve a yes, she retorted, but there was a small, amused smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. Shikamaru, who started to lie on his futon with his eyes closed, groaned. Could you 2 keep it down? Some of us are trying to get some rest here. Naruto, still lying dramatically on the floor, threw his hands up in mock defeat. Fine, I'll be quiet, he said sarcastically, but he couldn't hide his grin. Ino rolled her eyes, but she couldn't resist chuckling at Naruto's antics. But being all serious though, he said, pointing to the shoulder of his long sleeve. I made a seal this morning that allows me to seal the katana into it. When I tap it using chakra, then I can appear and use it. I got the katana from making it myself after forging it for a while. As for why, I have been training in kenjutsu for a while, he told them, shrugging. Ino raised an eyebrow, clearly impressed despite herself. You forged your own katana. That's kind of amazing, Naruto. I didn't know you were that into swordsmanship. Naruto grinned, the playful edge still lingering in his voice. Well, I figured if I wanted to become strong enough to protect everyone, I'd need to know how to fight with more than just my fists. I can use ninjutsu, but there's something about wielding a sword that feels right. Beings that my mom knows how to do, then I should learn for Uzumaki clan purposes. Shikamaru, still lying on his futon, opened one eye to glance at him. I thought that Lady Mito uses medical chakra and has super strength, he said, looking at him. Mom does know how to do that, but she knows how to use kenjutsu and learned it from a young age, he said. Naruto sat up, dusting himself off and looking at Shikamaru. Aren't you some smart guy or something, or do I always have to explain stuff to you, he said, smirking. Troublesome, I got a smartass and a blonde on my team, not to mention a blonde woman, he said, making Naruto snicker and Ino glare at him. Ino is going to beat you up and I am not going to stop it. Don't act like you aren't a smartass either, he said, chuckling. Shikamaru raised an eyebrow, clearly not intimidated by Naruto's teasing. I'll take my chances, he muttered, closing his eyes again as he made himself more comfortable on the futon. Besides, if I were worried about being beaten up, I'd have learned to avoid trouble by now. Naruto got Ino's attention to go over to him and mess with him. Ino was standing over the lazy Nara, who felt something behind him. He opened both eyes now and stared at her. You want me to beat you up, she said, hands still on her hips. Shikamaru sighed, half exasperated, half amused, and leaned back against the futon. I'm not worried about being beaten up by you, Ino. I'm just trying to get some quiet for once. Alright, I give up. I am going to hit the hay. Good night, guys, she said, making sure to hit Naruto on the way out, which made him sigh. So much abuse, he said, rubbing his arm. Oh, quit whining, she said, going into her room and closing the sliding door. Alright then, good night, Shikamaru, he said, lying down on his back. Finally, he said as he sighed, knowing he could get some rest now. Shikamaru's eyes closed, his body sinking deeper into the futon as the day's tension slowly faded away. The gentle rhythm of the waves crashing against the shore outside created a soothing lull, and he let himself finally relax. One by one, the rest of Team 10 began to drift off to sleep as well, their breathing slowing in the quiet rooms. Meanwhile, Shisui remained awake, ever vigilant. He swallowed a chakra pill, feeling the familiar rush of energy as it replenished his reserves. He knew that no matter how peaceful the night seemed, he couldn't afford to let his guard down. His senses sharpened as he watched the night sky above, the stars twinkling quietly in the vast expanse. He wasn't sure when, or if, Zabuza and Juzo would make their next move, but he knew one thing for sure: Team 10 needed to be ready. He would train them relentlessly, ensuring they were prepared for whatever danger lay ahead. The calm of the night was a brief respite, but the mission was far from over. Naruto was punching a log as he saw his teammates and Team 12 training. They had been training since this morning when Team Kakashi came in. He tolerated Sasuke and Sai as they were pretty neutral when they were in the academy. Sasuke always wanted to try to be on his level, when Sai didn't really say much. Sakura, on the other hand, was something else entirely. Now yes, she has gotten better over the years, but he still didn't like her for the disrespect she showed him when they were younger and when she was trying to impress his siblings. She still had fangirl tendencies, but like he said before, they were much better. Then there was Kakashi. He wasn't around much because he was in Anbu, but when he was always with either Menma, Kaide, or Naomi. It still left a sore spot in his heart. Don't get him wrong, he respected Kakashi highly for his ninja feats such as creating an assignation jutsu and his feats in the recent Great Ninja War, but as a person, he could give a rat's about it. He saw Shisui-sensei and Kakashi talking to each other. Likely, because of the battle soon to come with Juzo, Zabuza, and that other fellow. There was also the problem with protecting Tezuna's family. Naruto, take a break, Shisui-sensei called out, his voice carrying a tone of authority mixed with concern. Naruto nodded and turned around to sit against the log as he sighed. It was times like this that he wished he was with Shikamaru and Ino, but they were at the house guarding Tezuna's family. They clicked together amazingly, and with Sasuke trying to be like his brother and not want to talk, Sai not understanding anything socially, and Sakura being a, how did he put this, asshole to say the less. It didn't make for a good conversation. Shisui approached, his eyes softening as he looked at his student. You've been pushing yourself hard, Naruto. Remember, it's not just about physical strength. Your mind and heart need rest too. Naruto managed to smile, appreciating the concern. Yeah, I know, Shisui-sensei. Sorry, he said. It's all right, but come on and join us, he said, offering a hand to him, which he accepted. Now listen, I know you and Kakashi are a bit iffy, right, but try to put that to the side, he said. As they approached, Kakashi glanced over, his expression unreadable behind his mask. Shisui gave Naruto an encouraging nod before addressing the group. All right, everyone, let's head back to the house. We will be doing some different training that Kakashi and I have discussed between us, said Shisui as they started to make their way back to the house. They soon approached the residence, seeing Shikamaru and Ino on the porch as if they were waiting for them. Naruto glanced at Shikamaru and Ino as they stood on the porch, both looking like they had been through their own share of exhausting tasks. Shikamaru, leaning lazily against the wooden railing, gave a small wave with a smirk that barely masked the exhaustion in his eyes. Ino, on the other hand, looked more alert, her arms crossed as if on high alert for any sign of danger. You're back earlier than I expected, Shikamaru commented, his tone carrying its usual laid-back drawl. Yeah, we will all be training over there, said Shisui, pointing to the water, gesturing the two of them to follow the rest of the squad. Sasuke, who was curious, decided to finally ask. What are we training on? He asked, tapping his foot in slight annoyance. We are working on some chakra control, which is called water walking. Everyone here knows tree climbing, so we are going on to the next step, replied Kakashi, walking on the dock to show them. Water walking, huh? Sasuke muttered, his eyes narrowing. Doesn't seem that difficult. Kakashi, standing on the dock, turned back to face the group. His calm demeanor betrayed none of his thoughts, though Naruto caught a flicker of amusement in his visible eye. If you think it's easy, Sasuke, you're welcome to demonstrate. Sasuke smirked. Fine, I'll show you how it's done. He stepped forward confidently and made his way onto the dock. After a moment of concentration, Sasuke took a step into the water. For a second, it looked like he had it, but then his foot sank slightly, and water sloshed over his sandal. With a sharp inhale, he pulled back onto the dock, his expression soaring as he glared at the water. Kakashi's eye crinkled in a telltale smile. Not so easy after all, is it? Should prove to be some good training, said Sai calmly as he walked over to the water. Sakura, Ino, and Shikamaru followed suit. While Naruto stood on the dock beside them, Sasuke looked over at Naruto and smirked. You think you better than us or what? Why don't you try it, he said. Naruto chuckled as he jumped up and landed on the water, showing them. I learned this a while ago. I can even combine the leaf exercises to make it better, he said, walking back to the dock and stepping back on it. Sasuke's smirk faltered as he watched Naruto effortlessly walk on the water. His hands clenched at his sides, frustration is evident in his expression. TCH. Show off. Naruto crossed his arms and raised an eyebrow at him. Sasuke, you literally asked me if I could do it. Sasuke's glare deepened, but before he could retort, Shisui clapped his hands to regain the group's attention. All right, enough banter. Sasuke, you'll get there with practice. Something you need to accept about boys is that it is rare for boys to have better chakra control than girls. So don't be bummed out when they finish before you, understand? While the 5 students were working on water walking, Shisui was showing Naruto a different chakra control exercise. Alright, Naruto, since I know you're ahead due to your training with Lord Hashirama and Lady Mito, I will have you learn something I like to call Senbon balancing, he said. Naruto's eyebrows rose in curiosity as he watched Shisui produce a handful of slender Senbon needles from his pouch. Senbon balancing. Sounds interesting. What's the catch? The catch is that it is similar to the leaf balancing exercise, but they are much smaller, requiring you to use less chakra to try to balance them, thus improving your chakra control. Naruto studied the needles in Shisui's hand, his curiosity growing. So it's like leaf balancing, but harder because of the size and weight of the senbon. Shisui nodded with a smile. Exactly. Leaves are broad and catch the air, which makes them a little more forgiving. Senbon are smaller, lighter, and require much finer control. You'll need to focus your chakra precisely, or they'll fall. Naruto smirked, his confidence evident. Sounds like a good challenge. Let's do this. Meanwhile, Sakura watched Sasuke with determination. She stepped onto the water, her brow furrowed in concentration. Her first step was shaky, but she quickly adjusted, managing to take a few more steps without falling. This isn't so bad, she said, glancing back at Ino with a competitive glint in her eye. Ino rolled her eyes but smiled. Yeah, don't think I'll let you beat me at this. She stepped onto the water, her movements smooth and confident. While she stumbled briefly on her third step, she quickly regained her balance. Not bad, huh? She said, smirking at Sakura. Would you two knock it off? I am trying to concentrate, and I can't do that with two troublesome girls, said Shikamaru. Shikamaru sighed heavily, his brows furrowing as he stood at the water's edge, arms crossed. Honestly, this is such a drag. Why do I even need to do this? I'm perfectly fine on solid ground. Naruto glanced over at him and smiled. Shikamaru, is it more troublesome to be weak or to become stronger? Shikamaru groaned, scratching the back of his head as he processed Naruto's question. That's such a loaded question, Naruto, he muttered, stepping tentatively onto the water again. But I guess being weak is more troublesome in the long run. Fine, you win. Naruto grinned at his victory. See, it's worth the effort. Now stop complaining and focus, lazy bum. Troublesome teammates, Shikamaru mumbled under his breath as he took another step forward, the water rippling beneath his feet. This time, he managed to stay balanced for a few moments before his concentration wavered and he slipped, splashing into the water. Kakashi watched the 6 genin as Shisui went into the house to protect Tazuna. A few hours passed and as expected Ino and Sakura had nearly mastered the exercise while Sai and Shikamaru were making steady progress. Naruto was able to balance 3 senbon, which meant he was 30% of the way there. Kakashi watched as Naruto struggled slightly to balance the senbon. If I am right, Naruto has more reserves than I do. I make a safe bet that he has more reserves than Minato-sensei, meaning that he has reserves in the low cage area. His control is impressive for his reserves, but he still is going to struggle from time to time. Maybe, I should help, he thought to himself as he felt himself walking over to him. Kakashi approached Naruto, his hands tucked casually into his pockets, but his visible eye betrayed his thoughtful expression. Naruto focused intently on balancing the 3 senbon in his hand, didn't notice Kakashi at first. The needles wavered slightly as Naruto adjusted his chakra flow, sweat beading on his forehead. Not bad, Naruto, Kakashi said, stopping a few steps away. You're making progress, but I can see you're struggling to keep the balance consistent. Kakashi crouched next to Naruto, his gaze fixed on the trembling senbon in his hand. Naruto, startled by Kakashi's sudden proximity, almost lost his concentration, but he quickly steadied himself. It's tough, isn't it? Kakashi said, his voice calm and encouraging. Especially with chakra reserves as large as yours. Control requires finesse, not force. Naruto huffed, his frustration bubbling to the surface. Yeah, no shit, he said, not looking at him. Kakashi wasn't surprised at the outburst, but it made Sakura turn her head to Naruto. Naruto, you should treat him with respect and treat others how you want to be treated, she said, losing her focus and falling through the water. Naruto looked at her emotionlessly. If we are going by the golden rule, then I wouldn't even be talking to Kakashi-sensei since he never talked to me when I was younger, he said, making everyone silent. Kakashi flinched at Naruto's words, the sting of guilt settling deep in his chest. He didn't immediately respond, knowing that anything he said now would feel hollow. Instead, he stood back up, rubbing the back of his head as he contemplated how to approach the situation. Sakura, now sitting in the water with a frustrated pout, opened her mouth to retort but stopped herself. She glanced at Naruto, then at Kakashi, sensing the tension. Even Ino, who had been watching silently, frowned slightly. The usually boisterous atmosphere was suddenly heavy. Naruto returned his focus to the senbon, his jaw tight. What? No lecture. No excuses. He muttered, more to himself than anyone else. Kakashi sighed, taking a seat on the ground nearby. Naruto, he began, his tone softer than usual, you're right. I wasn't there for you as much as I should have been. I could make excuses, but they wouldn't change what happened. I can only say, I'm sorry. The unexpected apology made Naruto pause. His hands faltered, causing the senbon to clatter to the ground. He turned to Kakashi, surprised but still guarded. You're sorry. He echoed skeptically. Yes, Kakashi said, his voice steady. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, and not being there for you is one of them. You deserved better. Yeah well, I think I am going to go to town for a bit, he said picking up the senbon. Ino went to go and follow him but was stopped by Kakashi. Just, let him have some space for a bit. He needs it. Naruto started to walk down the road towards the town of the Land of Waves. There were some houses here and there but nothing like Leaf Village. Once he got to town it made him depressed. Children, adults, and the elderly, many of them were in tattered rags, skinny, and malnourished. It reminded him of when he was a child before he was found by Mito and Hashirama that day. He stopped when he felt something tugging on his shirt. He looked to see some children behind them. Naruto blinked, surprised, as he looked down to see a group of children standing behind him. Their faces were thin, their eyes wide with curiosity, and their clothes were tattered, clinging to their fragile bodies. One child, a boy no older than 6, was holding onto the edge of his shirt, looking up at him with a mixture of awe and hunger. Are you a ninja? The boy asked, his voice barely a whisper, as though speaking too loudly might shatter the fragile hope he held in his chest. Naruto bent down slightly, meeting the boy's gaze. For a moment, he hesitated, not sure how to respond. He hadn't expected to be approached, especially not by children who seemed to carry the weight of the world on their tiny shoulders. His hand instinctively reached up to touch the headband on his forehead, the symbol of his ninja status. He could feel the eyes of the other children on him now, some of them stepping closer, others waiting expectantly. Yeah, he said softly, trying to sound confident despite the knot that had formed in his stomach. I'm a ninja from the Hidden Leaf Village. The children's eyes lit up at his words. They all gathered closer, their faces full of wonder and curiosity. Wow, you're really strong, right? One girl asked, a small spark of excitement in her voice. Naruto chuckled lightly, rubbing the back of his neck nervously. He wasn't sure if he was strong. He had certainly worked hard to get where he was, but strength meant different things to different people. Still, these kids were so hopeful, and their enthusiasm felt like a small but bright light in the dim town. I'm getting there, he said, a smile tugging at his lips. But it takes a lot of hard work to get strong. Tell you what, how about I give you guys some stuff, he said reaching into his wallet. He looked into his wallet and smiled, here's hoping mom and dad are fine with this. Who am I kidding? They wouldn't care if I did. He had about $1,000 in here and would give out a bit to as many as he could. Naruto pulled out the money from his wallet, and a small, almost reluctant smile was on his face. His fingers traced the bills for a moment as he thought about how to best help these kids, who, despite everything, were still so full of hope and curiosity. He wasn't sure how far his money would go in this impoverished town, but if it could bring a little bit of relief to these kids, it was worth it. He looked back down at the small group of children, their eager faces filled with hope. They didn't ask for anything, they were just curious, hopeful that someone might take notice of them. Here, take this, he said, holding out some of the bills. He handed them to the little boy who had tugged on his shirt. The child's eyes grew even wider as he hesitantly took the money as if he couldn't believe what was happening. Naruto ruffled his hair with a grin. Use it to get something to eat, okay. He started to hand out more money to other people and it was a matter of minutes and almost all the people on the street were happy, full of gratitude, or both. The people and children clutched their bills tightly, their small hands shaking with excitement. They turned to their families, ready to share their good fortune. One child, a girl with wild, unkempt hair and a ragged dress, looked up at him with wide eyes. Thank you, she said softly, her voice trembling, thank you for helping us. Naruto smiled at her, crouching down to her level. You're welcome, but remember, you guys are strong. Don't forget that. You all deserve better than this, and one day, this place will be better. Just keep going. The girl nodded, her expression a mixture of awe and disbelief. She seemed to want to say something more, but no words came out. Instead, she simply gave him a small nod of appreciation and ran back to her family, her cheeks flushed with the excitement of the unexpected gift. Naruto stood up and started to walk away. His heart felt like it was in the clouds. He knew what it was like to not have anyone there for him. At the very least, he could let the people know that he was there for them. He looked over to his right to see a tavern or a bar of some kind and was hearing a semi-loud conversation. His curiosity piqued like it always has, and he walked into the bar sitting at a table. The two men with weapons on their backs as they drunkenly talked to each other about something. He turned on a chakra recorder and hoped this could be used for later and took off his headband so that he wouldn't be noticed. "I'm telling you, we need to do something about those damn missing nin," one of the men said, slurring his words as he lifted a mug to his lips, his hand shaking slightly. He was wearing a tattered cloak, with a rusty sword strapped to his back. The other man, who looked equally rough, leaned in closer, clearly intoxicated but still managing to follow the conversation. "Yeah, I agree, but there is some good news with that Momochi and Biwa guys," said the other, leaning in. Naruto sent chakra to his ears. "I heard those two guys aren't going to be working for Gato anymore," the second man continued, his voice low, as if trying to keep their conversation private. "Gato is getting tired of paying so much for those two who haven't made any progress on capturing the bridge builder." Naruto went wide-eyed as he heard this. Not only was Gato going to betray the two ninjas they just fought, but this meant that if they showed this to Juzo Biwa and Zabuza Momochi, they likely wouldn't fight them. He felt a hand on his shoulder, and he turned around to see his sensei, Shisui, standing behind him without his headband on like he had earlier. Naruto's heart skipped a beat as he turned around to see Shisui standing behind him, a calm yet serious expression on his face. "Shisui-sensei," Naruto whispered, though it wasn't a question. His mind was still racing from what he had just heard. Shisui gave him a subtle nod, his eyes scanning the bar before settling back on the two men. He seemed to sense the weight of the conversation as well, his brow furrowing slightly. "You heard all that, didn't you? The thing is, though, even if we were to find Zabuza and Juzo, they would probably not listen," said Naruto, still whispering. "I see you have that chakra recording going. If we do find them before then, we can use that so that we do not have to fight them," Shisui offered. Naruto nodded his head as he shut off the recording, as he saw the two leaving the bar now. "Let's get going, Naruto," said Shisui, patting his back and gesturing him to leave. They made it back to the Tazuna residence to discuss their plan with everyone there, Tazuna and Tsunami included. "That is the gist of it, though," said Shisui as he looked at Kakashi at everyone at the table. "Why does everything need to be such a drag sometimes?" said Shikamaru, sighing. "I agree with Pineapple," he said, smiling, making a tick mark grow on the Nara's forehead. "So does that mean we don't have to fight them?" asked Ino, taking a bite of her food. Shisui nodded thoughtfully, his gaze moving from one person to another as he gauged their reactions. "Ideally, we'll avoid fighting them. If the information we have is solid and we can get it to Zabuza and Juzo in time, they may see the benefit of turning against Gato. But, as always, it's not guaranteed. I am going to see if I can contact them, and with luck, maybe I can." Naruto smiled at that. "Well, if we can do that, we can avoid any violent conflict," he said, hoping that would be the case. The sound of Inari's fists hitting the table startled everyone. His small frame shook with emotion as his eyes brimmed with unshed tears. "You don't get it," he shouted, his voice cracking with anger and frustration. "Even if you stop those ninjas, Gato will just send more people to hurt us. He's not going to stop until he gets what he wants. You can't change anything." Naruto sighed slightly. "Inari, change isn't at the snap of a finger. It takes time. Your grandpa has been fighting for how knows how long, and some things have changed. The reason why we are here is to make sure that change is permanent." Inari gritted his teeth at that. "Just shut up. You know of the suffering we have gone through. You don't care about us. You don't know what it is like to suffer. I am sure that you have been living high and mighty all your life. So don't try to relate to me," he said, tears streaming down his face. Naruto was clenching one of his fists under the table, trying to keep composed. He was better than letting out his emotions like this and knew better than to do this. He also realized Inari was a kid, but he was making it damn hard to keep calm. Ino, who who was to the left of Naruto, saw this and she gently put her hand on his arm that was clenching his fist. Naruto felt his but sent a hard gaze towards Inari, who backed off slightly. "Inari," he said, taking a deep breath. "I know what you are feeling all too well," he said calmly. "But I am going to let you know right now that there are people out here in the world who have gone through much worse than you have. Something I didn't have for a long time was a lovely mother, which you have right next to you, and a lovely grandpa who takes care of you. I didn't have a family for a few years, but I eventually found them," he said, clenching his fist harder and making it bleed. "But you got now right in telling us that we have no right to be here to help. The whole point of being a force of good is meddling where you shouldn't be meddling. Because if nobody did that, then there would be constant war. Be grateful for what you have, and not what you don't. Not having a family is shit, and I never want to go through that again," he said, getting up from his chair and giving Ino back her hand. "Better yet, why don't you ask Kakashi-sensei over here," he said melancholily. "He knows what I am talking about all too well," he said, opening the door. "Thank you for the meal, Lady Tsunami," he said, bowing before leaving the room. Naruto stepped outside, the cool evening air brushing against his face as he tried to calm his racing emotions. He looked up at the sky, the stars twinkling faintly above, and took a deep breath. His mind was a storm of frustration and sorrow, but he couldn't bring himself to stay angry at Inari. After all, the boy was just a child, scared and desperate for some semblance of hope in his broken world. "Naruto," a familiar voice called out softly. He looked over his shoulder to see Ino looking at him. "Hi, Ino." Naruto, probably smart to not say any more, otherwise you would have made him storm off and cry or something, she said, walking up to him. "Yeah, I know. That is why I didn't say much," he said, wrapping some cloth around his bleeding hand. Ino sighed, crossing her arms as she stood beside him. "You don't have to do that, you know. Bottle everything up like you're some kind of pressure cooker. It's okay to feel things, Naruto." Naruto finished tying the cloth around his hand, flexing his fingers experimentally before leaning against the wooden railing of the porch. "I know. But what good would it do? Getting angry wouldn't change how Inari feels. If anything, it'd just make things worse. Besides, he needs to learn that someone out there has it worse. Someone probably had it worse than me," he said, quietly looking at the beach. Ino followed his gaze, her expression softening. The faint sound of waves crashing against the shore echoed in the quiet night, a soothing rhythm that contrasted with the tension lingering on Naruto's shoulders. "That might be true," Ino said, leaning against the railing beside him. There was a quiet silence as the two of them walked over to a bench near the watch. The waves gently crashed against the beach. Ino glanced at him, her expression was more thoughtful now. "You're something, you know that." Naruto raised an eyebrow, turning his head slightly to look at her. "What do you mean?" Ino shrugged, her gaze still focused on the waves. "You always try to see the bigger picture, even when people don't get it. Even when they throw it back in your face. I don't think I could be as calm as you if I were in your shoes." Naruto chuckled softly, his lips curling into a half smile. "That's what happens when you're blonde, I guess," he said, laughing now as Ino hit him on the shoulder. Naruto chuckled, rubbing his shoulder where Ino had hit him. "Are we back to abusing the Uzumaki again or what?" he said, smiling. Ino smirked, crossing her arms. "You deserved it. Always making light of things. You know, not everything is a joke." Yeah, I get it," he said, pouting slightly. "You know it's a sign of coping when you've been through some stuff," said Ino, scooting over to him more. "Ino, when you are an optimist in a world full of pessimists, you try to make light of things when everyone is down, upset, or knocked over. That's part of the reason jokes come fluently to me and why I do them. I try to lighten my mood when things are tense or when things are bad. Why do you think that there is a jokester on every team? They do that for a reason, so that teams have a bit of relief, even if it's for a moment when in the heat of a mission." Ino paused for a moment, considering his words. She glanced down at the sand beneath them, her mind racing with thoughts. "I get it," she said softly. "But I guess I just wish you didn't always feel like you had to keep stuff pent up like that." Naruto looked down at the ground at that comment. Ino had placed a hand on his arm, trying to get him to look at her. "I don't want you to worry about me," he said honestly. Ino's grip on his arm tightened just a little, but her voice remained gentle. "Naruto." He still wasn't looking at her and he wasn't sure why. "Well, I mean you already know everything. From my past family neglecting me to Mito and Hashirama adopting me and everything else in between. He then was shocked when he felt arms wrap around him and Ino was hugging him from the back of his back being turned. You don't have to tell me everything Naruto, but know that I think you are a good person, and I am here for you. A lot of us are, she said, blushing at what she was saying. Naruto turned to face her and reciprocated the hug. You're a good person too, Ino, he said. They broke the hug and Naruto started to laugh slightly. And what's so funny, mister? Ino asked, raising an eyebrow, her hands now on her hips in a mock display of annoyance. Naruto grinned, scratching the back of his head. Oh, nothing, he said, getting up from the bench to go inside. Ino narrowed her eyes, her hands still on her hips as she watched Naruto retreat toward the porch. Naruto Uzumaki Senju, you better tell me what's funny, or I'll make you regret it, she called out, a teasing edge to her voice. Naruto glanced back at her, his grin widening. I just thought it was cute, that's all, he said casually, walking up the steps. Ino blinked, her mock annoyance melting into confusion. What was cute? He turned back to face her, with that mischievous glint in his eyes. The way you got all flustered trying to say something nice about me. I swear you were redder than my hair. Ino felt her cheeks heat up, a mix of embarrassment bubbling up inside her. You're unbelievable, she muttered, standing up and brushing sand off her clothes. She marched up to him, poking him in the chest. I wasn't flustered. And Shikamaru isn't lazy. I know you were flustered, he said, still chuckling. Ino huffed, crossing her arms as she glared at Naruto. For your information, I wasn't flustered. I was just being considerate, okay. Naruto smirked, clearly enjoying himself. Sure, keep telling yourself that, Ino. It's not like I saw your face turn the exact shade of a tomato or anything. Her glare intensified, and she stepped closer, poking him in the chest again. You're lucky I don't deck you right now, Naruto. It's bad to lie, you know, said Naruto, wrapping his arms around her and picking her up in the air. Ino yelped in surprise as Naruto effortlessly lifted her off the ground, her feet dangling a few inches above the porch. Naruto. Put me down, you idiot. She exclaimed, her tone caught between genuine indignation and a bubbling laugh. Naruto grinned, spinning her around playfully. Not until you admit it. Come on, Ino, say it, you were flustered. She swatted at his shoulders, her voice raising in mock outrage. You're so immature. Put me down. Naruto laughed, spinning her a little slower but keeping her off the ground. Not until you admit it. You were totally flustered, Ino. I mean, I've never seen you like that. It was kind of adorable, actually. Ino's cheeks flushed an even deeper shade of red, and she squirmed in his hold, trying to wriggle free. Adorable. You're unbelievable, Naruto Uzumaki Senju. Put me down before I. Alright, fine, he said, sighing and putting her down. I'll stop being annoying, he said, walking up to the door. Ino, still red-faced, huffed as she hit him playfully. You better, she said, running upstairs to the bathroom quickly. She shut the door behind her and breathed out. She looked into the mirror and tried to get rid of the blush on her face. Damn it, Naruto. This is your fault, she said to herself. Ino stared at her reflection in the mirror, her cheeks still tinged pink despite her attempts to get her blush away. She splashed cold water on her face, hoping it would help, but it only seemed to make her feel more flustered. Her heart was still racing, and she couldn't figure out why Naruto's teasing was getting to her so much. He's such an idiot, she muttered, gripping the edges of the sink. Why does he have to say things like that? Does he really think I'm cute and adorable? She asked, looking at herself in the mirror a little harder. She looked at herself and nodded. Maybe he is right about that, but did he mean it? She thought to herself. A part of her hoped he did. That's it for part 4 of this powerful alternate Naruto story. If you're enjoying Naruto's rise and the awakening of his forbidden legacy, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more Naruto What If fanfics. Comment below, should Naruto reveal his full power to the world in part 5? See you in the next part.